What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Welcome to a Thursday show, gang. A little late in the afternoon, but no problem today. Just 4 games to get through. Nice, easy coast through the afternoon. Hopefully that's what you guys are doing at work or out wherever you are, taking it easy. Anybody out on like vacation? Anybody tuning in from the beach? Anything like that? It's been an interesting day. Weird one. Hulk Hogan kicking off. That was a wild card in a big week of death for 80s celebrities. Malcolm Jamal Warner, Ozzy Osbourne, Hulk Hogan. One of those things is not like the others in my mind, but we won't debate the merits of Mr. Hogan. He's gone from this mortal plane. And, here we are. On to a 4-game slate for us. Happy 61st birthday to Barry Bonds. Speaking of people who have someone who people have varying opinions on, Mr. Barry Bonds, 61 years old today. That is wild. If you're about my age, I'm 46. If you're in this territory, or probably presumably older, like if you're like EMAC, I would imagine that one has an impact for Mr. EMAC as well. That makes me feel old. Derek Jeter turning 50 somewhat recently. I think it was 50. Made me feel old. Barry Bonds turning 61 makes me feel old. Whew. More so than me being 46, for sure. Absolutely no bones about it. One of the greatest players of all time. Steroids or no. My official take is and always has been that, yeah, absolutely did steroids. No doubt about it through those last few years. No doubt about it. His head went from this size to that size. I mean, it's obvious. But he took himself from an absolute lock first ballot Hall of Famer to just an immortal. That was what he did with steroids. But he was amazing before the drugs. Absolutely incredible player. One of the first guys that I remember just being, you can watch and just like, I know I'm seeing something a little different. You don't see talent like that come through too often. A lot of amazing talent, a lot of top-notch Hall of Famers playing right now. Throughout the 2000s and the 90s, Hall of Famers, but level up. I get to enjoy a guy who plays on that kind of a level on my very own team these days. Mr. Aaron Judge, 350 home runs, about to join the top 5, passing Yogi Berra. I think Yogi's at like 356. In Yankees history, obviously. Pretty good list, though. It's Ruth, Gehrig, Joe D, Mickey, Yogi, and now Judge. Pretty good company. Anyway, just killing a couple minutes there, letting people trickle in. I forgot to announce the show. I scheduled the show and then forgot to tell anybody about it. So I just sent it out on Twitter before, basically saying, hey, what happens if we've got just a 4-game slate and I forgot to tell anybody about the show? We'll find out. Not expecting a huge crowd for this one. Interesting one yesterday with that 5-gamer. We ended up doing like a 2-hour show on that 5-gamer. I don't think we're going there today. I think we can kind of cruise through this one a little bit. But what do we have? What came through yesterday that I'm struggling to remember here? The White Sox. That's right. We talked about the White Sox maybe being on the board as a contrarian team, and they came up with 11 runs. Rays put up 9 on the other side of that one. Team that did not come through for us yet again, the Baltimore Orioles. Every single time we go there, we just get kicked in the teeth. Really starting to bug me. And then that Angels, A's, and Rangers game, 2-1 game at the end of the night with both those pitchers who being of questionable quality, those 2 lefties. Weird slate. But that was that's 2 days in a row. We talked about really bad teams potentially being on the board. The day before that, we were talking about, or maybe it was 2 days before, we were talking about the Rockies and them being the better side of that core series against the Cards. Cards are on this slate, so it's worth a mention. I talked about it throughout that series. They scored 13 total runs in the 3 games in Colorado? It's okay, but it's not exactly overwhelming, especially when they came into each of those games with 6 implied runs. So technically they left like 5 runs on the table in Colorado. It's not a good team, especially not DFS wise. with good reason. We were talking about Colorado being the more interesting of those, but we've got the Cards tonight. We do not have Colorado to work with tonight. We also don't have the lousy White Sox. It's actually a kind of interesting slate as far as all of the teams are offensively competent. We've got pitching to work with. I wouldn't say that necessarily. We've got obviously a couple more name brand type guys on the board here than maybe some others, but everybody on that board is at least moderately competent, with the apologies to Jason Alexander, or can be. So it's an interesting pitching slate, especially when they come in at a variety of prices. We've got a really similar situation to what we had on the 5-gamer yesterday, where Sonny's kind of standing on his own at 95 on DK. On FanDuel, you've got the two $9,000 pitchers, and then you've got an even larger offset than we had yesterday from top down. So really, really interesting as far as that pitching board goes. No issues with putting like those two together. Kikuchi, Lauer work together. Even Logan Evans, despite some power showing on the other side of that one, yet again for the Angels. I think there's a lot of options for going around Sonny Gray in that spot. He's totally worthwhile and inarguably, I think, the most talented pitcher on the slate, even still. A little bit shorter in terms of average depth of start. He's coming off of a couple short ones. I think he only went 3 in a planned short start prior to the break, if I remember correctly, and then only went 3 because he got tattooed in his most recent start. Low strikeout opponent going up against the Pods. Not exactly a soft spot for Sonny at those prices. And then a lot of questions up and down. As much as any one of those guys can win you a slate, I would bet that 5 of those guys are going to put up numbers that'll lose you a slate tonight. Let's look at the board. Blue Jays and the Tigers, 8.5 runs there, 4.11 implied total for the Jays, 4.48 on the other side of that one. Kind of intriguing for the Tigers. Seeing a little bit of power in that one. There is some weather in the area. As of last check, Roth had it as yellow, saying there's a line of storms. Got to double check as we get back toward lock. Feels like it's going to be okay, but definitely swing back because there's a lot of weather in the area. So keep an eye on that one. Losing that game would hurt quite a bit for this slate. We've got Reese Olson on the mound for the Tigers. Definitely capable of keeping that Blue Jays lineup in check. He hasn't been exactly tremendous this year, a little bit lower strikeout overall, but does have good upside, does have a lot of playability on this slate. But he's going up against a very effective Blue Jays team that is pretty low strikeout. We're going to have a lot of that today. As mentioned, Sonny Gray is challenged by that same thing. The Padres, as up and down as they can be, it's a low strikeout squad. So could maybe shave down the top end for Sonny on the wrong day. Yu Darvish on the bump, making his 4th start of the year for the Pods. Did go 5 on the 19th. So reasonable expectation out to 5. He only struck out 1 in that game. He allowed 3 earned runs on 5 hits to the Nationals. But a usable piece, especially going up against that Cardinals offense. But they're pulling a 4.43 implied total. That'll be an all-sideser. The Athletics and the Astros, mid-4s implied total for the Athletics. They're going up against Jason Alexander or George Costanza, whatever you want to call him. Alexander made 1 start in the show this year. He went 6 innings back on June 17th. And then he made a few other appearances in bulk relief. He's pitched 15 innings in the show, and then he's been starting in AAA. He made a start just on the 18th, went 6 2/3, 5 innings on the 12th. So I have no issues giving him a full depth of start here and just letting him land as he does. It just doesn't exactly crash through the top of the board because it's Jason Alexander. He is 32 years old and has never fully broken through in the show in any big way. And then Severino, I think we certainly want to attack with some Astros bats there. 4.71 implied, 4.72 implied total. And then the bottom of the board, the Angels, like I just kind of hinted at, biggest total on the board, 5.26 implied against Logan Evans. We're seeing a lot of power upside for the Angels. We know that they can be hit and miss, but they've come through a decent number of times for us on the season. A lot of times where they've looked similar to how they look today. I think just the other day they did not come through for us in that in that. Oh no, actually they were okay that day. They didn't mash, but they were all right. I think Shanuel had a good game if memory serves, and a couple other guys. But looking like a spot going up against Evans, and then you say Kikuchi a total wild card as usual to round out that slate. 8 strikeouts, 2 earned runs over 5 in his last one. That was against the Phillies. That'd work. A lot to talk through. So again, Kikuchi lands right there. Number 2 on your slate. Very cheap on DraftKings. Really, really easy to use. Don's asking about Kikuchi right now. I have the Angels pitcher and the A's pitcher for my GPP. Is that good? He's asking. Good is difficult. It's not, everything is fine, right? Everything on this board is playable. You can combine any of these pitchers. Severino comes with a significant downside. More of his downside this season has come in home games. He's actually been mostly effective on the road. He's done a lot of complaining about that Sacramento minor league ballpark that they play their home games in. So I think given that, I mean, it's not necessarily anything real, but you could maybe lean on that a little bit. He's also just a talented guy who does have some decent strikeout stuff, but it's a tough matchup against the Astros. But basically everybody's got that, right? We're dealing with 8 pretty good teams here. There's not a bad team on this slate. So yeah, you're fine there, especially with, what you can do price-wise with that combination. Kikuchi at 83 is the second highest projected pitcher on the slate, and not really all that dissimilar from Sonny Gray, arguably in a better spot pitching against that Mariners team with the upside for strikeouts that they can give him rather than pitching against a low strikeout Padres team. So absolutely fine there. But Kikuchi, just against anybody, is a high danger pitcher. He walks too many. He gives up way too much premium contact. He's had a big history of giving up way too much power and home runs, but you can quibble with a lot of the guys on this slate that way. So yeah, I think you're fine there with that combination. And that kind of takes care of 2 of those guys. Sonny, again, just a challenging matchup, but I think easily the top end of the board, the most talented guy, the most proven guy, the most real guy on the board. Olsen, tough spot against the Blue Jays. They are most definitely a quality team that comes through with some run scoring, is low strikeout. So just a couple few runs against and keeping strikeouts to 3-4 rather than 6-7 makes a big difference on a slate like this. There's only so many directions to turn. Lauer against Detroit. I'm seeing more Detroit upside, but he's very, very usable there. I wish he was a little bit cheaper on that FanDuel slate than 8,800 would be more targetable. I think out of everybody up here, he probably ends up the lowest owned because people will want to go to Detroit against him, I think. Just some speculation, but I think I could see it working out pretty well that way. On DraftKings at 79, he's going to pick up some popularity, probably equal or maybe even in excess of those 2. Evans is usable, 8,000, 7,000. He is not completely terrible. He's just allowing some premium contact and power that's translating really nicely through the model, and I think I'm just going to be heavy to the Angels on the other side, but there are plenty of strikeouts in the Angels lineup to go to. Darvish, you're just working with probably a short start. It's probably going to be 5 innings. It's going up against that mediocre Cards lineup. He's correctly priced for it. Maybe you pick up a couple strikeouts more than what he's given us so far, so I think we can go to Darvish, but dicey. Sevy, I just talked about a little bit. On FanDuel, it's 79. I don't love that price on Severino. You can see the big $1,900 price difference site to site. Much more effective of an option as a dart throw SP2 type guy than he is a I have to lean on you $7,900 starter standalone. But he's there. He's usable. And then Alexander kind of bringing up the bottom of the board. On FanDuel at 55, given the fact that there probably are 6 innings available for him, I don't think you'd be totally nuts to build a few Jason Alexander lineups. We'll look at it. We'll talk it through a little bit more, but I don't think it would be completely crazy. DraftKings just has them at a price where it's like, I don't know if I want to get over the top when I could just have Sevy cheaper, any of these guys cheaper. That price is a little off to me. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel as we get started here. So link to the free Discord down in the description. If anybody's not in the Discord, pop in there. Assuming you like Discord and chatting and communicating with like-minded people in the community and everything, talking about plays and picks and whatnot. If you don't, then you don't have to. But if you're looking to join the community, pretty good. Try and keep it lively in the Discords and tame around other subjects. Keep it to sports, maybe some pop culture and entertainment leaking around the corners. That's fine. But we try not to get too crazy like some other chat areas in the world out there. Got to mute my phone. The site is rotoscouts.com. Everything is under $1 a day. No per sport fees, no nonsense. Your same under $1 a day gets you access to all the baseball projections, individual home run model number for every single player on the slate, top stack rankings, power index, home run picks, and the newest feature, the game-by-game snapshot that gives you literally this screen that you're looking at. You don't get the Excel file. You don't get my projections file to make your own or anything like that, but you're getting little snapshots at the beginning of the day for the projected lineups. Some of them are already the confirmed lineups by the time I put it up today. And you get all these stats that we talk about. So you get everything that we care about right next to the player pricing, the projections, everything you can see on your screen for each game. So hopefully that provides some value. That was on request that was made just at the beginning of this week. Anyway, let's dive on in, huh? Eric Lauer at 79.88 checks in with a 27.1% strikeout rate. I mean, again, that makes him very usable here against the Tigers team that comes in with 22.1% strikeouts. They're a talented offensive team for sure. They've got a few appreciable power bats in the heart of the lineup. They've also got a couple maybe softer spots. Just realizing that's not all the way pulled out there. Definitely some strikeout targets as you go down from the middle of the lineup. With the exception of Glaber and Johnny Jones, we're at a 23.9% strikeout rate for that group. So there are Ks for Lauer to go find. He's doing this on a 9.3% swinging and a 26.8% CSW so far. Not fully sure how real that is. 2 years ago in 9 starts, 46 and 2/3, he had a 20.4% strikeout, 8.9% swinging. I feel like we probably end up trending back down in that direction eventually. If we're looking in years past, what are my sample sizes here? That was the 23 season I just gave you. 2022, he was at 23.8% strikeouts in the show. That was across 29 starts, so absolutely full season. 2019, in 29 starts, he had a 21.2% strikeout rate. Not to say that it's impossible that something changed. I haven't directly dove in and looked at the arsenal, but he is finding some more Ks without really picking up much more over here. Solid so far at keeping guys off base. 0.97 whip works for me. 2.80 ERA, but a 3.83 xFIP is the real number. He's given up a lot of fly ball, 20.6 degree average launch, 44.6% hard hits and 91.2 miles an hour of exit velo. It's just some of the hard hits, some of the highest end exit velocity numbers don't seem to have coincided with launch angle to create barrels. So he's a little bit light on the barrels, but I feel like that home run number could easily be quite a bit higher given this and that and that. It's just happenstance that I think has kept them below even 3%, let alone 4%. Gettable pitcher, I believe in the Tigers' power numbers, but entirely usable, especially 79 on DraftKings makes it a lot of things work. 88 on FanDuel standalone. He competes with the top of the board pretty easily. Olsen at 81.86 works also pretty well. He's pitching to a 23.6% strikeout rate over 12 starts, 63 innings. 2.71 ERA is terrific. 3.77 xFIP is probably the real number for him as well. He's finding a 13% swinging strike rate, nearly a 30% CSW. This is coming off of a season with a 21.7% strikeout rate, 12.7% swinging over 112 and a third innings. Had a nice pickup last year. Lost a little strikeout overall, though. In the grand scheme of things, he pitched a little bit better in these 22 starts than these 18, but he lost a little bit of strikeout in doing so. He's picked that back up now, and if he can manage to keep ERA, xFIP, run numbers, and whip all in the territory like he did last year, it's a good pitcher. He had a 1.12 whip back over here. He doesn't really have any issues with walks. Up a little bit so far this year at 8.9%. He's also given up a fair amount of exit velo and hard hit, 91.4 and 45%, but it's on an 11.2 degree average launch. That's not nothing. There are plenty of fly balls in there, and there's plenty of potential home runs, and he probably should be, if you normalize everything over that 1.16 that he's given up so far. But there's a big difference between this launch angle and that launch angle, even though this and that are very similar. So if I had to say which guy's more likely to have issues with the home run if we gave them both 100 exactly neutral starts, in exactly the same scenario. I would say that it's Eric Lauer more so than Reese Olson. I would also probably say that Reese Olson is the more realistic strikeout pitcher, even though he's got the worst matchup here. So for today, that doesn't necessarily apply, but just in terms of who they actually are, I believe in Reese Olson's strikeout stuff a little bit more, given the swinging strikes over multiple years, the CSW number over multiple years, where Lauer just seems to have found a few strikeouts in these 61 innings that maybe he shouldn't have necessarily gotten. Both pitchers very much in play. Blue Jays bats also very much in play. We're going to both sides every single game on this slate, by the way. So if you're not into that kind of show, I got bad news for you. Or that was the bad news. Don saying Kurtz is 49 and Torkelson is 41. That's a solid price difference. Kurtz might be worth that price difference, though, the way he's been hitting. Crushing baseballs. One last question for this large field first base. Would you take Kurtz or Torkelson? Depends on what you're doing with that $800 is really the answer. Either one of those hitters is tremendous. So no issues, but no real daylight between the two hitters. If that 800 buys you something, then absolutely you could take Torque. 11.53 in the home run model for him. He's got 21 on the season, a 248 ISO. He's a monster bat. He's a little less reliable when it comes to just the hit tool. 239 average, but a strong 339 on base. And all the pop that he puts into the ball creates extra base hits, gives him very solid numbers across the board outside of a little bit of, the batting average issue. Oops. If you look at Kurtz, he's carrying a better batting average so far in terms of in a smaller sample. But that's generally better that stretch than we've seen from Spencer Torkelson as far as ancillary scoring in addition to the power that they both very much provide. So if you're just looking for which guy might contribute a couple, a single, give you a couple of extra points. If he doesn't have a good day for power, he strikes out 3 times, but he singled and happened to score a run because somebody knocked him in. You've got a slight edge, I would say, maybe toward Kurtz, but it's very close and consider it equal. I mean, it's really not that different. So whatever that $800 buys you, that's your answer. King of all trades is here. Good to see everybody, by the way. I don't remember if I said hi to everybody individually, but King's here, Don's here, Andy's here, Mike Lanes, I know I said hi to before, Beyond the Rabbit Hole, Del, Cujo, of course, first one in the door as always. Good to see everybody. Anthony Taylor's here. Think I got everybody. If I missed you, apologies. Either I scrolled past you way too quickly or you haven't said hi yet. But if you're out there, hit the like button for me. We're so close to that 1,000 subscribers. I'm so close to never having to say that again, you guys. I think we're like 6 or 7 away. Just even if they don't like baseball, just go tell somebody that you know, somebody that you trust to actually follow through, to go in and just click that thing. Would help us out quite a bit. Josh Gillum's here. Brian C. What's going on, guys? Good to see everybody. So take 2 on this Blue Jays lineup. Nathan Luke's off the top, 3,600, 2,600. Easy to afford. Getting on base at an effective clip over 235 plate appearances. You can, at worst, you're getting a good correlated scoring option there. 106 WRC plus, nothing matter with that. 325 xWOB is right around average. Doesn't hit the ball particularly hard, but doesn't strike out, does draw walks. So he's a compelling piece because you're not paying any kind of tax for lineup position, correlated scoring on a small slate, or really any of that. So if you're looking at this list of Blue Jays hitters, all of these guys, and possibly Loperfido, will go a little bit more popular than Nathan Lukes. He's just an underwhelming overall player. So if you're stacking, grab them, bolt them directly onto these guys, and you just get a little piece of bonus scoring. If you're just fishing around for a cheap one-off outfielder on a slate of this size, the ability to just get to first base a couple of times and the potential to be driven in a few times, whether or not he contributes individually beyond a couple base hits or a couple of walks at all, doesn't really matter. That could come through. And at those prices in that lineup spot, that could be an asset on a slate like this. Even if you're not going Blue Jays, if you just want a cheap outfielder on either site, I would keep Nathan Lukes in mind. Not to go out there. I'm not saying he's going to go out and hit 2 home runs and score you 50 fantasy points, but a handful on a day where you're very limited in your overall options at every spot. And a lot of guys are going to give you zeros on a slate like this. 6 points could be a difference maker. FanDuel points. I think in FanDuel points. Guns here. What's going on? You're good to see you, buddy. We didn't end up connecting. My own fault. I woke up sneezing and sniffling my face off today, as you can probably tell by the tissue in my hand. And I wasn't 100% sure I was going to do a show at first, but then started to feel a little bit better. So I didn't end up reaching out, but if you want to go nuts, maybe start early, tackle the big one tomorrow. How many games are tomorrow? If it's 14 or something like that, it's probably not a good idea. Ooh, yeah, that's a biggie. 13 gamer, it looks like. Assuming we don't start at 640, which probably FanDuel will do and make it a 14 gamer that's different from the DraftKings one. 13, Guns at 15 on Friday. Yeah, everybody's playing. I know that much. There's one earlier afternoon game and then one 640 game. Maybe we punt it. Maybe we go like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, like we originally talked about. We both want to make it happen. We've talked about it. We talk to each other from shows about doing it, and we're just bad at actually putting it together. But we'll get there. Appreciate the enthusiasm. So the obvious guys in the Blue Jays lineup, in addition to Mr. Luke's up at the top there, George Springer, star caliber player, 17 homers, 12 steals, a solid 377 on base, 217 ISO, creating runs 44% better than average by WRC plus. Tremendous option. On DraftKings at 47, he's fairly priced. 37 on FanDuel is the highest priced Blue Jay and one of the higher priced players on the entire slate. Makes it interesting. Now, Springer's the 4th highest priced player on the FanDuel slate. Cal, Kurtz. Kurtz number 2 is wild, by the way. And then Nando there. And Springer all on his own at 37. Worth it, though. I mean, worth it, and has put up those numbers, kind of like what he used to put up. Vladdy at 52-36. We've talked plenty about the power outage. He's got 13 home runs on the board. Everything is fine. There's not one thing I can point to outside of the results of the contact that is off the mark at all. This is the Vlad Guerrero that we've known and loved, and you just play him. And he's going to have a monster's last 2 months of the season. We're going to will that into existence. 47-32 for Bo Bichette. 13 home runs for him. A solid slash line. 281, 321, 448. 113 WRC plus out of him. Easy piece to use. Hits the ball very squarely. 9.2% barrels, 49% hard hits. Solid piece. Doesn't strike out. Doesn't really draw that many walks. So you're getting a lot of well-struck balls in play out of Bichette. That's why I like him in the 4 spot behind these guys, because just putting the ball in play can make something happen when these guys are getting on base at an average 374 clip ahead of them. So that's a really interesting setup for this team. Addison Barger at 43-28. 14 home runs for him on the season, a 240 ISO, 129 WRC plus. He's been tremendous. The difference-making pickup for this team. That's really what he's been this season. Once he hit the ground here in Toronto, they've been a different squad. Third base and outfield eligible. Very fair price, too. 43-28 on FanDuel. FanDuel's not paying attention. 2,800 is cheap. Ernie Clement, usable piece. Kind of along with Nathan Luke's line, except in a worse lineup spot for what I'm about to say, which is he can get on base. He can find some base hit upside. Doesn't have a ton to give beyond that, but he's cheap. He's multi-position, fits in at second base on both sites, so that's a good attribute to have. Just a 95 WRC plus, but very capable of putting the ball in play. If the guys ahead of him are on base, let's say these 3 guys are all on base, these 2 blank, then we do have Ernie Clement's hit tool coming up with the bases loaded, 2 outs, and maybe he delivers with a single and drives in a critical run for your scoring. So he's on the board for that, but it's not him correlating with them. It's them correlating down to him needing to do something with the bat. And he's just the kind of player you'd like to have the other way around. Loperfido's got power. If you want to look at those 2 as a correlated piece, Barger clears the bases. Ernie comes up, singles, and now we've got Loperfito's power coming in. Loperfito hasn't done a ton, but 310, 355, 448, and 31 plate appearances. He got a home run on the board. He's driven in 6, 126 WRC plus. Again, I only threw in the RBIs because there's very little to talk about with him right now. But RBIs, runs, as we've said numerous times on this show, we don't talk about because they're not at all predictive and they're entirely out of the hitter's control. Loperfito in the minors, 2023, hit 25 home runs, stole 27 bases across 540 plate appearances. That's as a 24-year-old, 365 of those chances and 19 of the home runs and 20 stolen bases came as a 24-year-old in AA. So you do have to account for that slightly. It's not like he was crazy far ahead of the age, but you're slightly aged up there. But did okay last season, AAA last season. 189 plate appearances, 272, 365, 568 with a 296 ISO, 13 home runs and 9 steals in under 200 plate appearances. Pretty good. And just has not really put it together at the major league level, or did not last year in his 262 chances. Bad slash line, just a 136 ISO, 4 homers, 4 steals. Realizing I could show those numbers over here. That's a bad year. But this year, it does, in this tiny sample that we've got to work with so far, it does look similar to the uptick at each level in the minors, where it was like, meh, and then good, meh, and then good on each promotion. Easily something to work with on a 4-game slate, 2,800, 2,500. You could get a good day out of Joey Loperfito. Tyler Heineman, solid slash line over 98 plate appearances. Difficult to argue with that. 155 WRC plus, just a 285 xWOB under the covers. Doesn't exactly hit the ball hard. 25.7% hard hit rate. Not striking out much in the small sample. Medium walk rate. Mix and match guy. Yeah, we maxed out at 13 home runs in his career. He did that twice. Once back in 2013 at high A, and once in 2019 across two stops of AAA, one with Arizona and one with Miami. In the show, he's got 4 career home runs in 397 plate appearances, 243, 322, 333, a .090 ISO. Doesn't really strike out that much, but just an 87 WRC plus, kind of a nothing bat, quad A type player at best, and probably more like a AA, AAA overall talent. He's just old. He's 34. And then Willie Wagner, 25-23, mix and match piece. First and third is less than ideal. Second base is probably where I want to stick that option if I'm using it. He has been getting on base over 111 plate appearances. 345 on base is kind of keeping him afloat, or at least it's the only reason he's in the 90s via WRC+. It's about all he's done well. But if you're just looking at that one attribute, the 11.7% walk, the lack of significant strikeout rate, okay hard hit rate, if nothing else, but that 345 on base, as a wraparound play back up to those guys, makes it kind of interesting. It keeps my average high. That 4-man average is now 367. It was 370 something for those 3. So if you're just looking at him as a guy that I can put ahead of that group in a reverse, in a wraparound kind of configuration, he's fine. He's not going to be your most popular guy in any Blue Jays stacking, but he's fine. 448 total for the Tigers. Very, very interesting team. I like their upside to get to Lauer here. Glaber's an asset off the top. 4,400, 3,200 for his right-handed bat, pulling a 7.61 against all the premium contact in the home run model. I like the upside for Glaber. A little bit of power might flash today. If nothing else, very solid bat. Very solid batted ball events. Low strikeout. High walk rate. He's excellent. 13.2% strikeouts. 14% walks this year. 9.1% barrels. He's hit 9 home runs in 385 chances. He's not a monster power hitter, but he's getting on at a 387 clip. Creating runs 31% better than average. With that quality of contact, the ability to draw the walks, and just everything that he does out there, 390 xWOBA under the covers tells us he could improve upon the numbers he's put up. This is Gleyber at the peak of his powers. He is a good player. 3,200 at second base works for me. 44 on DraftKings, same thing. I would expect him to be popular within Tiger stacks. He's probably going to be a pretty popular one-off option on both sites at second base, but I think he's got a lot of upside today. Tommy Jones in 60 plate appearances does have an interesting little 16.7% barrel, 52.4% hard hits. It's resulted in 3 home runs, a 264 ISO, monster 408 xWOB under the covers. 135 WRC plus. Just keep doing what you're doing, Johnny. Second base eligible on FanDuel is nice if you're skipping Gleyber, but I don't want to skip Gleyber particularly. But you get him in the outfield as well for 24 on DraftKings, 3,300 in the outfield. If you remember, if you were here the other day, he had a back end projection that was broken and was running wild, and I had to get in there and fix it. And maybe now we got to give him back a little bit more leash going the other way. Got to let that sample size grow a little before I do that, I think. But it's been a pretty solid little stretch of 60 plate appearances. A nothing sample. In his major league career, including those 60 plate appearances, 212, 281, 346 with a 30.5% strikeout rate. Only 1 home run on top of the 3 he's hit this year. Does have 3 stolen bases in previous seasons, but we're talking about just little cups of coffee. 72 plate appearances with Baltimore back in 21, 47 last year with the Yankees. Something outside just exploded. It's a weird noise. If nothing else with Jones, just the spot in the lineup against a gettable pitcher that we want to target and those prices make him really appealing. Torkelson, we kind of talked about briefly, but monster upside. Having a good year. 239, 339, 487. Entirely justifiable for a power bat. 127 WRC plus. Very solid 358 xWOBA, 14.6% barrels. Torkelson's just a masher. He's just good at hitting baseballs very, very hard and pretty frequently over the wall for a lot of fantasy points. 21 homers on the season. Next to Riley Green, that number's a little bit smaller. Riley's got 25. He's also got the better slash line. Between the two, Riley Green is the one that you would want. He is the better hitter, full stop. But he comes with a few downsides as well. 32.3% strikeouts this year compared to the 24.1 that Torque is putting up for one thing. Fewer walks as well, 6.5% walk rate compared to double digits for everybody above him and a couple guys below him in this lineup. So there are a couple believable flaws. The $1,000 price difference on DraftKings is maybe a little aggressive. Kind of like them both priced right where together, 3,300, like how FanDuel has it. I would split the difference probably and say 45 a piece on DraftKings would make sense. But that's right around what you're going to average if you rush or both of them anyway, right? That's a $4,600 average. Duh. They will probably work. Either way, I think you can absolutely one-off either of those players. I was going to say maybe on DraftKings it would work better just using them mostly in tandem, but you're going to want to do that anyway, so kind of a nothing statement. Matt Vierling at 3,000, 2,400, very affordable. 64 mediocre plate appearances so far. What you'll note about the plate appearances is the absolute lack of output, the .019 ISO, 61 WRC plus, but that comes on 12.2% barrels, 46.3% hard hits, and a small sample of batted ball events, which is downright interesting if you ask me. 21.9% strikeouts, 10.9% walks. That's a usable player, just hasn't found the results. Last year, he hit 16 home runs in 567 chances, /257, 312, 423, a 108 WRC plus. He's no star, but he's an average day-to-day kind of a player. Absolutely a player you can roster, a player who is justifiable in a major league lineup. Wensil Perez, 11.5% barrels for 4,200. Maybe give me some Matt Vierling for cheaper at the same position on DK. Vierling's also got that third base eligibility on FanDuel for even cheaper. 2,800 for Wensil on FanDuel. He's slashing 250, 309, 466, 216 ISO. There's nothing wrong with him. 7 home runs and 162 plate appearances. But if I could save a little bit of money, move up the lineup by a spot, at worst, they're a back and forth situation for me where I'll have just, some of both of them in my Tiger stacks. You've obviously got some options to work with there as far as one-offs go as well. 2 high-quality options on a slate like this, on a 4-gamer. Again, potential difference makers. Really interesting guys down bottom of this lineup, too. This plays 9-man deep on this slate. 3,200, 2,700 for Dylan Dingler. 264, 308, 410 season, 101 WRC plus. Solid across the board, but unspectacular. 45.1% hard hit, just 8.7% barrels, but good combination of factors there. Could yield a little bit more power than the 146 ISO so far, where you have to play catchers for 32. That works really well. Even where you don't at 27, depends on what else we're sacrificing to get to him. He's probably my second to last choice in this lineup. Actually, I might even say last choice because it would demand using util or skipping Torkelson. And Javi's got multi-position for the same price. So he's probably my last man in out of this lineup, but that doesn't mean he's a bad option by any means. 6.08 in the home run model. Colt Keith is really, really interesting to me today. I don't think people are going to get to him as aggressively as basically everybody else in this lineup. 2,600 with 3 positions on FanDuel, 3,400 with second base and third base on DraftKings. You can put him in any one of those positions. I have no issues with it. He's got the power upside to justify it. He's got the hit tool to justify it as well. 254, 340, 415 over 312 chances this season. A 162 ISO, 113 WRC plus, and an xWOBA that tells us he's better than that. 10% barrels, 45% hard hits, draws an 11.5% walk rate against the nothing strikeout rate, or an average strikeout rate. That is a good player, and he's got a lot of minor league pedigree that says he's going to get better. As I've quoted a bunch of times on this show this year, development, not linear. Javi Baez at 35, 27, 10 home runs on the board for him at 270, 304, 431 season so far. 104 WRC plus. He's maintaining despite a lot of obvious flaws. Walks just 3% of the time. 22.6% strikeouts is manageable, but it's not spectacular. Limited as far as the batted ball events, just 6.5% barrels, 40.9% hard hits. Just a 294 xWOBA because of some of those things. But he's getting it done. You can't argue with the fact that he's just going out there and making things happen. Not something you necessarily want to bank on as far as a predictive call, but he's very playable at 35, 27 on FanDuel with the multi-position. Works for me. Four corners game. Tigers bats. Blue Jays bats, I think. Reese Olson, Eric Lauer, but all 4 of those things are very, very, very much in play. That's 42 minutes and 1 game down. How long did Adam's show go today? I saw that he was going on at noon. I was gonna respond to his tweet, but I didn't get a chance, or I got distracted. I did not have a chance. I was sitting with my face in Twitter all morning with all the craziness going on. But South Park, by the way, you got to watch it. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Regardless of what side you're on, just go watch it. Ridiculous. But yeah, I was going to respond to Adam like, hey, if you only go an hour starting at noon, that'll give people like just enough time to watch my show afterward. 5-hour run up for a 4-game slate. See if we got this Padres lineup. 3.66 implied total for them. Going up against the best pitcher of the day, we do have the lineup. So Sunny, 95 across sites, 27.2% strikeouts against a microscopic 4.2% walk this year. 4.04 ERA, but a nice tidy 2.89 xFIP. That ERA was quite a bit better. It was like 3.5 something going into the last game, I think. Last time out, 3 1/3 against the Diamondbacks out in the desert. Sonny struck out 5. He walked none. That's all right. That's a good start. What could have gone wrong? Well, the 2 home runs, the 11 hits, the 8 earned runs, the 9 runs total. That'll bend your ERA in an awful hurry. 3 1/3 innings pitched in that one. Obviously a meltdown. That was his worst start of the year. Had a couple other bumpy ones, though. He's basically either excellent or runs into a few walls. 8 earned runs in that one. Back on June 12th, he gave up 6 earned runs in 4 1/3. On May 14th, 7 earned runs in 3 2/3. And then a 5-er back on April 2nd. 5 earned runs over 6 innings. Every other start, fewer earned runs than that. Numerous starts in here with 0s. Complete game shutout, 1 hitter with 11 strikeouts. People were arguing that it was the best start in Cardinals history. That was against the Guardians back on June 27th. If you want to look at it through an incredibly silly, non-predictive lens, he blows up about once a month, and he's already done that for July. So you're fine. That is not at all an actual prediction. I like the spot here, though. Even with a 20.1% strikeout rate for the opponents that is somewhat padded down the bottom of the lineup, even with this tremendous top end that strikes out just 15.8% of the time across the top six, there's upside for Sonny. Sonny can find his Ks, 12.1% swinging, 30.8% CSW, not dissimilar to last year's 13-4, 31-2 when he was striking out 30.3% against a 5.8% walk rate. You can see there has been a dip in the overall arsenal, though, if we're just looking for things to nitpick. Stuff Plus doesn't like him as much as he measured out last year. So if you're just looking for why did some of those bad days happen, maybe that's why. But tremendous option on either side, top of the pitching board as far as projection goes. Yu Darvish, 75-74. That's not good. That's not good. That's terrible. So is that. This is okay. This is bad. That's bad. These are all fine. Hasn't given up a home run yet, keeping the ball down to a 2.7 degree average launch in his three outings. It's 3 starts. The first one was on July 7th. He went 3 2/3 that day, struck out 5, walked 3 against the Diamondbacks at home. 2 earned runs on 3 hits. Non-tragic, but obviously no depth. 4 2/3 in the next one, gave up 4 earned, struck out 2, walked 3 against the Phillies. Again, that's not a total disaster, but obviously he didn't want it for DFS that day. 5 hitter, 3 earned runs, 1 strikeout, 1 walk against the Nationals last time out, but did manage to get to 5. I think we're probably looking at 5 again. We probably don't have even as much upside as necessarily as projecting there, but I think I'm good with leaving this as one of those days where this doubles as about his ceiling. I don't think there's much more to give on top of this for you, Darvish. 20.1% strikeout rate for the opponents. That's the pretty realistic number, 20.7 for the same group of hitters last year. So just probably not the day to go crazy with Darvish shares. But again, on a day like today, especially if his team gets to the opposing pitcher, then 20 to 25 FanDuel points out of you, Darvish, for 74 just might win the day against these prices and what those pitchers are likely to do or capable of blowing up and doing. So you, not spectacular, not exactly peaking like some of the others might as far as the ceiling goes, but definitely playable here. Cards lineup pulling a 4.43 implied total, though, if you need yet another log on the fire as far as avoiding you, Darvish. Padres bats 55-38 for Fernando Tatis on a slate like this. One of the most expensive players on both slates, but both sites, but easily worth it. 11.3% barrels, 50% hard hits, 16 homers, 22 steals, 126 WRC plus. Dude's a monster, multi-category capable across the board. So absolutely can get to some Fernando Tatis. He's an expensive one-off that you're going to plunk into plenty of lineups as you round the corner and have one open spot in the outfield and plenty of salary on a day like today. That's an easy one-off to keep in mind, but he'll be popular in that sense. Fernando Tatis, I don't think I'm breaking any ground here. Not a secret to the community at large. Just pulling up his ownership real quick. It's actually not crazy. Double digits, but low double digits. Not crazy. Not the highest owned player on this team per one site's DraftKings projections. I would imagine it's pretty similar on FanDuel. Luis Ariz at 38, 3,000, slashing just 285, 320, 391. That's a perfectly competent line for a hit tool-oriented BABIP-focused player. But I say just because it is low for him at those numbers, even as good as it is. That on base needs to come up. The average needs to come up. He just doesn't do enough other than that. 287 xWOBA, 102 WRC plus, a 105 ISO. The Padres are looking for solutions. They want to stay competitive, reportedly. They were thinking about reportedly Dylan Cease is on the market, but he's on the market because the Padres want to add like 3 pieces that can help them compete now, which is a weird way to go about things. The first change they should make is just looking at this goddamn lineup and getting Luis Ariz out of the 2 spot. I've been saying that since like May. It's idiotic. 36 for Manny Machado, 18 home runs on the board, a 200 ISO. Monster season so far for Manny. I feel like the power output has maybe cooled over the last little bit. We had a bunch of those home runs earlier. Let's see where we're at here lately. Yeah, the month of July was unkind to Manny's power. Why am I not getting my totals? That's weird. Come on, Labs. Work with me, Labs. Work with me. And now I can't multi-click here? What the fuck? Weird. Now I have to see this. I don't know why it's not letting me load that tab correctly. There we go. Oh, actually, yeah, July power has been fine. It was sorted upside down. 5 home runs, 246, 308, 522. So the slash line has slipped a little bit, but the power's been fine. I was wrong about that. 522 slug over that stretch, a 275 ISO. It's actually been hitting for more power in that stretch. That's since July 2nd, their first game in July. Did the dip come in June and I just didn't really clock it? Because he fell off pace there a little bit for home runs. No, 7 in June. Am I just losing my mind? Maybe I did have it sorted upside down. Anyway, Manny's having a great year either way. Regardless of when a little bit of a slowdown in home run output came, that's solid season, 285, 346, 485. Love the option for 49. Should probably be priced up over 5,000, especially on a 4-gamer. 36 reflects that on the FanDuel slate. Jackson Merrill for 44.32, a solid bat. 7 home runs in 292 plate appearances, a 149 ISO. His power output has definitely been off the mark a little bit from expectation, but still barreling the ball 12.8% of the time, putting up decent numbers, a 108 WRC plus, very encouraging 361 xWOBA to work with. A lot of upside there. Xander Bogaerts at 39.31. The output has been up and down throughout the season, but overall we're at 268, 344, 380. He's got a 108 WRC plus. For a minute there, he was below average WRC plus, carrying a 340 xWOBA, stolen 16 bases. So he's finding a way to contribute fantasy points. Walks plenty at 10.6%. Doesn't really strike out at 15.6. Just doesn't exactly crush pitches the way that he used to. 6% barrels, 38.6% hard hits. We're not really getting a lot of power output. But at 39, 31, I don't really need it. I'll take the on base. I'll take the correlated scoring out of that player with a little bit of kick in the bat to boot. Gavin Sheets at 37, 31 has 14 home runs, a very solid season out of him. 254, 316, 428, 110 WRC plus, 50% hard hits, 9.6% barrels. Not a star by any measure, but we're paying no tax for the productivity that he's put up this year. 37 on DraftKings, 31 on FanDuel, still first base eligible on FanDuel as well. So with an abundance of quality outfielders from the first game, we definitely look at some Sheets at first base. Cronenworth also potentially on the market, 3,800, 3,000, 8 home runs on the board, 115 WRC plus. Supposedly the Yanks are shopping for Cronenworth and Cease now. Bryce Johnson, Martin Maldonado, down lineup, mix and match pieces at the absolute best. Johnson's been effective over 31 whole plate appearances so far. Maldonado, every now and again, you get those oddball home runs. He's got 4 in 149 plate appearances. Not really based on anything outside of the occasional barrel. 8.5% 2 years ago, 8% last year, 9.2 so far in the small sample this year. He's at exactly the same home run total and basically the same numbers that he put up last season. Johnson in 73 plate appearances last year, nowhere near as good as the 31 he's put up this year. 48 plate appearances the year before that, also nowhere near as good as the 31 from this year. So I believe the 100 plus plate appearances over the 2 years prior to this season's teeny tiny sample size is also striking out 29% of the time and walking just 3.2. Cards bats. They rank down the board as far as the stacks total goes. That just comes from, I've talked about this before, when I average out these projections with weak options down lineup. Maybe we're a little bit light on Jordan Walker with what his true ceiling might look like, But based on this season's output and some of last season's output, these are around where I would want him. Victor Scott's kind of a nothing bat at the bottom. Pedro Pajes doesn't give you much. This team drags their average down, where they play up a little bit better when they've got these high-end Vegas totals than the fantasy projections might tell you. But also some of that is just like real baseball-wise. Right? They're a team that's going to deliver 4 to 5 runs without a ton of DFS quality. They don't have a true power hitter in this lineup right now. Burleson's got 12. Contreras has 13. Arenado's somehow gotten to 10 despite a total absence of swing quality or power. But there's not that much here. So they're very much on the board. For a 4-game slate, you're absolutely using them. I think you could get aggressive about using them against this version of Yu Darvish if you want to. That total tells you that. I think they're going to get popular and maybe a little bit more popular than where I want to land with them. We were right about them at Coors Field. Been wrong about them in a lot of spots throughout the season, though. I know Gunn was suffering from that earlier in the year. We talked about it. It was just a tough team to get right. There's not a ton of quality, and there's not a lot of DFS scoring attributes. They don't run that much outside of Victor Scott down the bottom of the lineup. Nobody has more than the 6 stolen bases that Mason Wynn's picked up. They get on base okay up at the top of the lineup, but that tapers off down toward those guys who don't project well and drag the average down. Everybody up top is fine as far as those projections go. But that's where all the run creation is. 122, 146, 125, and 121 WRC plus for Brendan Donovan, Ivan Herrera, Alec Burleson, and Wilson Contreras. And then everybody else, with the exception of Mason Wynn at 102, is pretty firmly below average. It's a weird lineup. That said, with all that in mind, again, very short slate, and all those prices work pretty well, even with the quality that you're getting. I would argue that on FanDuel, they're a little bit more high-priced and a little bit less appealing for that reason. Also, potentially part of why I have a little bit of negative feel toward this team. These are more than I want to pay for those 4 hitters. Oh, no, you don't have the dual catcher. Oh, you do, but it's down here. That's right. I was about to say the Wilson and Herrera, but I forgot Wilson's first base only on DK this year. 15% barrels and 48.5% hard hits out of Contreras this season. He should be delivering more power based on that contact than he has so far. He's hit 13 home runs, which is okay in 409 plate appearances. Just a 181 ISO. He's creating runs just fine. 376 xWOBA tells us the story that I'm in the process of telling. Hit 15 home runs in just 358 chances last year, though. Season before that, 20 in 495 chances. He's just been a slightly better bat as far as the overall output. And maybe he's just gotten unlucky and maybe he normalizes, goes up to 20 home runs before the end of the season. If he continues just putting this bat on ball, that is not only possible, it's almost likely. But as I've said a bunch of times this year, all his production and what he does at the plate plays way, way better at catcher than it does at first. That's less of a concern today because you've got competing options. We've got Kurtz, we've got Torque, obviously. We've got Vladdy. But you've also got guys like Luis Arias on the other side. So you'd very much rather have Wilson Contreras than Luis Arias most of the time. Arenado for 37-31. Again, 10 home runs, slashing just 241, 299, 379, a 299 xWOBA, and 89 WRC plus. He's got to figure out how to be a different hitter. He's not hitting for power, and he's never going to again based on that swing speed. He's not really striking out, draws a medium walk rate, doesn't really get on base, doesn't deliver via BABIP, doesn't walk enough to get even to a 300 on base percentage. It's really difficult to see much utility in Nolan Arenado outside of just being a cheap spot filler with a good name brand on the back of his jersey. But that's really all he is right now. Win is just an average shortstop, 269, 325, 386. This is the issue with this team. 7 homers, 6 steals, a 102 WRC plus, 307 xWOBA. There's nothing special. 5.2% barrel, 36.7% hard hit. Yeah, he's low strikeout, medium walk, but you're not getting much quality of contact. Jordan Walker, oddly, remains. I talked about him in Coors the other day. I don't think he did much of anything out there. But at 27, at 26, given the minor league pedigree, given the output that he had 2 years ago in the show, even with last year's struggles and this year's struggles, I kind of believe just in the the DNA of the kid. At those prices, I think he is arguably the most interesting Cardinals bat because he's going to be lower owned than everybody above him. And he's real cheap. I like him as a one-off against this pitcher. Should have a lot of opportunity to tee off, even with these bad numbers. And they are bad numbers. 0.095 ISO, just 3 home runs and 216 chances. You know what I'm going to say? 9.1% barrel, 48.5% hard hit in his batted ball events. Very capable of putting zeros in your lineup. 31.9% against the 6% walk rate. But if he connects on the right pitch, that could be a slate breaker. Pedro Pajes, Victor Scott. Scott will steal you a base every now and then. Pajes is nothing more than a cheap spot filler at catcher. Not a bat at all. Sonny. Cardinals. Padres. Darvish. Darvish probably less interesting on FanDuel because I think we're only getting 5. So, you know, even with the limited options for quality starts, he's less likely than some of the more stretched out guys. Big Chops is here. King of all trades is here. King saying Adam's show is 43.29. Adam's efficient, man. He gets it done. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that is bad by any means. In a lot of ways, that's a lot better than what I do. But yeah, I just thought it was funny to put them side by side on a 4-gamer. This is going to end up going 2 hours. I can feel it. Joker's here. I don't know if you can hear that. He's sitting back. I'm scratching his neck, and he's like, right behind me. Yeah, Gunn pointing out Monday and Tuesday this week were also big slates. Yeah, it's a weird one. And then we had that broken up afternoon day yesterday, and then this little one, usual small slate Thursday. But yeah, it was a weird scheduling week. I wonder if it's impact from the All-Star break maybe somehow. Not sure. Let's move on to the next game before the show's over. Before we hit lock. I'm sure these lineups are in by now. A's and the Astros. So Jason Alexander, as mentioned, is basically fully stretched out. Most of his work in the show this year has been in bulk relief. He's only made 1 full start, but he went 6+ in that one. And he's been pitching in the minors to fully extended starts. Who is Carlos Cortez? Let's find out about Carlos Cortez real quick here. This can't be correct. I'm going to go ahead and assume that Graphs accidentally flipped their bats throws. They've got him as bats lefty, throws both. I suspect they meant bats both, which is how they say switch hitter, and throws lefty. I'm going to guess. Nothing on. No. Baseball Reference has it the same way. Bats lefty, throws both. Okay. He's also 5'7" and 197 pounds. Not exactly a big dude. $17 homers in AAA this year. He's 28, so we're talking about an advanced aged player, and he's like Jose Altuve size. So call him like AAA Jose Altuve light. A poor man's AAA Jose Altuve, I think seems fair. Low strikeout, high walk, solid slash line this year. Is the AAA production as a 28-year-old's great. His 27-year-old season wasn't bad either. 16 homers last year, a 210 ISO. Didn't really hit for average, but got on base a ton. Was actually only at a 99 WRC plus though. Low teens home run output in his actual trek up through the minors. Never cracked the majors. He's made 1 plate appearance in the majors, and I think it came just the other day. Yesterday. So yeah, not exactly a hot shot rookie jumping into the lineup here for the Athletics, but let's at least get him on the board. There we go. Dead min price on DK, dead min price on FanDuel. I'll tell you what, with the second base eligibility on DK, he's at least in the mix for a couple shares. Yeah, you come up here, you face Jason Alexander, who is a AAA pitcher on his own, also old. That's a reasonable combination, and this is a kid who's been crushing AAA so far this year. So if you look at it through that lens, that's a cheap bet to pop into second base and cheapen up your A's stack in an awful hurry. I could easily skip Max Schumann up at the top. No issues there. He's getting on base a lot. That's a fine correlated scoring play. But if we're looking to get this kid in while getting to the power bats that we want, that's the move. So Kurtz, yes. Rooker, yes. Soderstrom, yes. Langoliers, yes. And then this kid, with apologies to Lawrence Butler. And I've got all of those high-quality A's bats against Jason Alexander for under 4,000 apiece. Call it 4,000 exactly. 39.40 apiece. For Kurtz, Rooker, Soderstrom, Langoliers, and Carlos Cortez. I will take that shot on DraftKings. Absolutely. If you wanted to switch one of those guys out for Lawrence Butler, easy to work with that. Luis Urias from the bottom of the lineup is an interesting mixer as a bat if you're going to a bunch of A's. He's got 7 home runs and 271 plate appearances. We talked about him a fair amount for him being Luis Urias and a 9-hitter on the A's, probably more so than most other shows around the industry. But we get there every now and again. He's cheap, he's never popular, and he's capable of putting good wood on the ball and driving the ball out of the park, which is all we really need, especially on a 4-game slate like this. You got multiple guys that we're trying to fit into the second base spot. I don't love Schumann at shortstop, so it depends on what your overall lineup construction looks like. But Urias at the bottom, Cortez from the 7 spot, and Schumann up at the top, all three are playable in loosely different ways. Schumann's just here because of that 358 on base over 120 plate appearances. 6 stolen bases, a 103 WRC plus in the small sample. Last year, over 459 chances he got on at a 311 clip, stole 14 bags, just an 85 WRC plus. Less productive. As long as he's drawing some walks, getting to first base, he's an asset ahead of all the power because that's the guy they'll be driving in. So playable, not overly appealing from the top. Kurtz is just ridiculous. Talked about him at the beginning of the show. Solid slash line, 19 home runs and 260 plate appearances. He's going to end up leading this team in home runs despite being 200 plate appearances behind everybody else. Rooker's got 21 on the season. Feel like it's been a minute for Brent, but 228 ISO. Monster season overall at 275, 351, 504. And especially as I've talked about plenty, cutting strikeouts from 32.7 2 years ago, 28.8 last year, down to 22.4 this year, while maintaining a fair amount of his power. He's off the mark a little bit for just the overall home run output, but 21 home runs right now is pretty good. Soderstrom, monster barrels and hard hits out of him. Plenty of premium contact. 18 homers. His pace slipped a little bit from that ridiculous start that he had, but 256, 330, 447 with 18 home runs. From a kid like this, 4,200, 2,900. He made 213 plate appearances last year. They weren't great. Did hit for a little bit of power, though. Had 9 home runs, a 196 ISO. 138 plate appearances the season before that. He hit 3 homers, had a .08 ISO in that cup of coffee. But this is his first real full season in the show. And he is providing fully fledged major league numbers right now. So we're not sleeping on him. He is a high-end player in this lineup. Langoliers, easy to roster, especially on a short slate at catcher. Probably going to get a little popular just because he's the highest upside catcher that I can think of off the top of my head out of these 8 catchers that are available, or 10 catchers that are available. Very easy to get to. 10.4% barrel, 44.1% hard hit on the season, 14 homers. Lawrence Butler's also got 14 homers. He adds 16 stolen bases to that. 102 WRC plus for him. Plenty of hard hit, well-struck balls out of him. Langoliers, oddly, is striking out quite a bit less than Butler this year. Previous seasons, that's been the opposite. This year, Butler up a little bit at 28.5%. Langoliers down at 19.9%. The improved strikeout rate for Langoliers and for Brent Rooker makes a lot of difference for the middle of this lineup. If those guys aren't going to be striking out in the upper 20s, that just turns the lineup over a little bit more, gives them more opportunities with big balls in play. Even, the potential for sacrifice flies and everything if they're not just whiffing up there. Keep base runners moving, drive runs in. And then there's Gio Urshela, who's never been much of a hitter. 220, 275, 318 on the season. No home runs, no stolen bases, no real quality at the plate whatsoever. 81 WRC plus over 453 chances last year. Had a 299, 329, 374 season back in 2023. 2 home runs, 3 steals. Not a very good player. Slate like this, you can obviously use some Gio Urshela. Very cheap. spot filler at third, but third is not necessarily where I want to get my spot fillers. The Astros bats with a 4.72 implied total. I realize I'm doing the bats before the pitching in this one, but it's just where we landed when I noticed that Carlos Cortez was there. So the Astros 4.72 implied is the second highest on the slate, if memory serves. Yep. Obvious appeal there. Going up against Luis Severino, who's pitching to a 5.10 ERA and a 4.69 xFIP, just a 15.9% strikeout on 6.7% swinging, 22.3% CSW. Sevy's been quite a bit better than this in years past as far as strikeout stuff. 21-2 last year, just 18-9 back in 2023, but 27-7 back in 2022. He's not that guy anymore, but he's maybe not quite as low end as he might appear. For one thing, Stuff Plus still loves the arsenal. It's wildly ineffective this year, but for some reason, the way that it travels through space and time still measures out really, really strong on Stuff Plus. Hasn't given up much in terms of barrel, moderate launch angle, a lot of hard hits, but not that much exit velo. Weird combination of factors as far as the premium contact. I kind of buy this. 2 and change, maybe up to 3 and change home run rate, but not an egregious home run rate. Kind of keeping some of the power there in check. These are respectable numbers, but not monster in the Astros Power Index. So I think we can target some Sevy, but I also think that he's usable on the mound, like we talked about at the beginning of the show with whoever that was using him that asked. Not something that I love talking about, but there is a marked difference in his home road splits this season. And as I said at the beginning of the show, he's been doing a lot of vocal complaining about it. You have to keep in mind that ballpark that they play in Sacramento. It's a minor league park. The ball flies out of there. In his 66 innings at home, he's pitched to a 6.68 ERA. He's allowed 8 home runs, allowing a 302, 367, 462 opposing line, a 360 opposing WOBA. That's the 308 hitters. On the road, over 52 and a third, 3.10 ERA. He's allowed 5 home runs, 29 strikeouts, keeping hitters to a 215, 290, 333 slash line, 280 WOBA. That is actually a really good pitcher. Struck out 29 of 219. Not a monster strikeout rate. Still on the road. Where is that on the pitcher board? Yeah, he's actually struck out fewer on the road. And the thing to throw in here is a wrinkle. And the reason that I don't like talking about this is because his road xFIP is 509. His home xFIP is 437. So better results on the road so far, undeniably. Missing some, not missing bats, but inducing worse contact, finding better results. But not necessarily because of things that he's actually doing up there. So it's very dicey to really full-throatedly endorse Luis Severino shares against a low strikeout Astros team. But he's only 6,000 on DraftKings, and that makes a lot of things work. On a slate like this, you're absolutely playing him. I wonder how popular he is. Mid-double digits. That's actually not crazy popular for a $6,000 pitcher on a slate. Oh, wait, sorry. That's the FanDuel. I was like, wait a minute. I bet he's going to be quite a bit more popular on DraftKings. Yeah, there you go. Basically double the FanDuel ownership that I just said on DK. Puts him up there, but again, you're almost required to use him if you're building a lot of lineups just because of how cheap he is and everybody possessing essentially similar probability today. Nick Kurtz, by the way, one of the most popular players on both slates, just if you want to work that into the mix, whoever was asking about Kurtz versus Torkelson. JV Altuve, exactly. Thanks, King. King says, I enjoy your long shows. I'm a talker as well, so I like the vibes. This is business, so we must take our time. You feel me? Yeah, man. Absolutely. Like, there's something little, you can find a good show to fit whatever you're looking for, and you can breeze through the others, right? If you want something short, efficient, and excellent, Adams is great at this. I am not in any way saying it's bad. He does a great job. Adam does 40-minute shows, hour-long shows. You want something a little bit more extended, rambling, wandering through these things? You can catch me for a couple hours. And something nicely in the middle, I think, is Gun. You catch Gundacker's show, and you get a little bit of both of those worlds. Works pretty well. Beyond the Rabbit Hole loves Taylor Trammell tonight. Leading off, not a bad spot in this lineup going up against Sevy. Lefty bat, a little bit of pop there. 13.3% barrels and 46.7% hard hits in whatever batted ball events that is over 56 plate appearances. Not a great slash line, 217, 339, 413, but 2 home runs in that mix. A 196 ISO, creating runs 13% better than average so far. Kid who came up with a little bit, not like top end prospect pedigree, but a solid, like this guy should be a good medium power speed kind of outfielder. Think like a light Cedric Mullins, and never really delivered. You can see the lines here. Not exactly huge samples, 117 plate appearances in 22, 56 in 23. Not a ton to work with. Minors, 407 plate appearances last year in the New York Yankees system. 18 home runs, 20 stolen bases, a solid slash line, a 129 WRC plus. If only he could play third base. 21 home runs in Seattle's AAA system as a 25-year-old. The year before that, 17 stolen bases, a 122 WRC plus. Again, the solid slash line, a 262 ISO. He's got very real skills. Whether he's a major league caliber player versus a quad A player remains to be seen. He's about to turn 28 and very little sample at this level of success. But in this spot for those prices, looks like dynamite today. Jose Altuve at 46, 3,000, 17 home runs. He's up to 283, 44, 66. What bad season? 123 WRC plus. Just grab him. 46, 3,000. He's a little more expensive on DK than on FanDuel. Easy to use, though, on this slate, and everybody else in that lineup is cheap. There's not a single bat on FanDuel that's expensive in this Astros lineup at all. And on DraftKings, they're very easy to reach, too. Caratini at 37, 28 has 10 home runs. We talked about him the day he dropped into this lineup more regularly, and he's not let up as far as just putting good bat on ball. He's climbed the lineup. He's been productive for them. Creating runs 11% better than average via WRC plus. Solid bat. He's a guy who's always been able to hit the ball hard in terms of his hard hit rate. And, coming against a low strikeout, medium walk rate means a lot of well-struck balls in play. He's added a few more barrels to that equation this year. He's been really good over 262 plate appearances. 406 pretty bad plate appearances from Christian Walker, though. Outside of the premium contact numbers, which remain fairly stout at 11, 4, 45, 2, striking out too much, not walking enough, especially as compared to his numbers from seasons past. Just 13 home runs and 406 chances is way off his average pace. A 148 ISO and 91 WRC plus. Diamondbacks got out at the right time. Astros made a mistake, it looks like. Not pretty. Could easily turn it around, but it's getting ugly. 4,000, 2,800 for Cam Smith. He gets on base at a good clip, creates runs, 107 WRC plus, a 332 on base. Definitely an interesting enough option. And then look at that. John Singleton back on this team. Deadman on FanDuel at first base, 2,400 on DraftKings. If you're unfamiliar with the legend of John Singleton and his dalliances with the Houston Astros, most of his numbers in the minors. Very much the definition of a quad A player. We could start calling those guys John Singletons from now on. 930 major league plate appearances over 4 separate years. 2014, 2015, 2023, and 2024. You'll note a slight gap in between those numbers. He had 13 home runs and 362 back in 2014, slash just 168, 285, 335 with an 81 WRC plus, just a 168 ISO and a 37% strikeout rate while doing it. Did draw a 13.8% walk, but obviously it didn't get him to first base enough. 58 plate appearances the following season. Worked in the minors for another 8 years. Kicked around, bounced over to Milwaukee's AAA system. Was with the Mets for a minute. Did he not go overseas? I thought he had an overseas year too. Yeah, he was overseas from. They just don't have it on graphs here. 2017 to 2022. Was he in Japan? Why am I not getting my... This is all AAA, minor leagues. I'm forgetting where he went, but there was a 5 years in there where he wasn't playing in organized North American baseball. And now he's back. Last season, he made 405 plate appearances. 119 games. He hit 13 home runs, /234, 321, 386 with a 27.4% strikeout. Did draw some walks at 11.3%. Did create runs in a positive sense at a 104 WRC plus. 224 minor league plate appearances in AAA so far this year. Started with the Mets and now back with the Astros. 16 home runs in 306 chances. Similar high strikeout, very high walk, 228 ISO, 118 WRC plus. When we're talking about just 3 true outcomes hitters, again, the quad A player of quad A players right now, 3 true outcomes guy, you got a shot for those prices. Draw me 2 walks, score me a run, and for that money, we're probably okay on a 4-game slate. And he's got the power upside to boot from the left side going up against Soriano with some of the contact available there. I don't hate the option. Mauricio Dubon, Bryce Matthews, Zach Short going down the lineup here. Matthews, a little bit of talent, if memory serves. No, we haven't gotten much out of him so far here. But when he got called up, 325 plate appearances in AAA this season, 10 home runs, 25 stolen bases, 283, 400, 476, 193 ISO. Last year, as a 22-year-old, from high A, or actually started in the complex level, up through AAA, made it up to AAA. 344 total plate appearances, 15 homers, 32 steals, 265, 384, 481 with a 216 ISO. So there is most definitely talent here. Zach Short, not much of a hitter. Mauricio Dubon, at best, a multi-position, cheap mix and match guy. 262, 308, 407 out of him. Looks a lot like Mauricio Dubon from years past. Last year, 269, 296, 361 with 4 homers over 428 chances. Year before that was an okay slash line, but just a 97 WRC plus, 10 home runs. So between those bottom 3, kind of intrigued by the Matthews option. If you're looking to like oddball this lineup, maybe a 3-man DK, that's like 1, 2, stretch to Caratini. I don't love. Maybe it's Cam Smith and those 2. That kind of works. 3,200 apiece essentially for a 3-man. And then you get Cam Smith with his on-base skills ahead of Singleton with the power upside, or if Singleton also walks behind Cam Smith, then maybe we get down to Matthews at a cheap price and essentially no ownership. In 29 plate appearances, by the way, Matthews does have 3 home runs and a 375 ISO with a 408 xWOBA. Mashing baseballs. Not dead down the bottom of the lineup anyway. And then to round out this game with Jason Alexander, as mentioned several times already, he is also a minor league talent. Dude is 32. And what do we have show-wise? Let me just pull it up on where I can actually click around instead of looking at the static images. $12 career starts in the show. 5.92 ERA against a 4.75 xFIP. 14.4% strikeout rate against the 9.6% walk. That comes over 1 start, 6 appearances this year. And then a little bit of work in 2022. He threw 18 games, made 11 starts for Milwaukee in 2022. but not a high-quality option. You can see the 8.40 ERA, the 5.81 xFIP, the 14.9% strikeout, the 13.5% walk rate, 11.5% barrels, 46.2% hard hits, and 90.2 miles an hour of exit velo. That does play up into the A's power quite a bit. Definitely like the A's bats against as we talk through there. I do think that Alexander's slightly usable, though, just because he's stretched out. Right? In last AAA start on the 18th, went 6 2/3. One hit the AAA Angels, struck out 9 in that game. Game before that faced the AAA Dodgers, went 5, gave up 2 earned runs on 5 hits, 2 earned runs on 6 hits. The start before that with 5 runs scored total, over 4 2/3 against the AAA Padres. Struck out 3 of those Dodgers, struck out 5 of those Padres. That 9 strikeout game was by far his best game in the minors. But at least the depth is there. It wouldn't completely stun me if we got 6, kind of regardless of how it's going, unless he's absolutely getting blown up. But if he's given up like 4 runs, we probably get a 6th inning. Not that that gives us a quality start, of course, but it gives us at least a cheap 6th inning. If he's given up 3, we got the shot at the quality start. 5,500 on FanDuel. 78 on DraftKings is where I kind of run into problems, which is weird because usually a pitcher like this we'd only be looking at on DraftKings. Very much the bottom of the board. You can see the price, the projection offset. You can also see that price offset on DraftKings. That just doesn't work. He's not a value punt. Your value punt is Luis Severino. A's bats, Astros bats, or Astros bats, A's bats. Call it a tie, honestly. I just like the quality, the upside of the A's quite a bit better than this Astros team. These Astros play a lot like the Cards do, in my mind right now. They similarly have weak bats down the bottom, sort of, that average down, with apologies to an underdeveloped Bryce Matthews projection. So yeah, I would go bats in either order. And then Sevy over Alexander, but neither one was all that likely to do much for you. Last game up. I threatened to talk quite a bit about the Angels today. The good news is I haven't mentioned yet the home run pick of the day comes from this game, the last one on the slate. Instead of making it like the second guy we talked about like we did with Westberg yesterday. Don't think he came through, if memory serves. Had an okay day, though, right? Out of all the non-existent Orioles offense, I think he drove in both their runs. But yeah, we're going to like the Angels here because we got 1, 2, 3, 4 guys above the magic number in the power in the home run model. We've also got Joe Moncada drawing at 8.7. We've got Travis d'Arnaud, who's a sleeper option at catcher down there. 3,100 for Travis d'Arnaud against this pitcher. I'm kind of interested. I like that price, even on FanDuel at 26. If I need to cheapen something up, I'll take shares of Travis d'Arnaud instead of Nolan Chanuel. That's an easy decision to make. And he'll be way lower owned on FanDuel. Starting with Evans, 7,000, 8,000 for him. 17% strikeouts, 3.81 ERA, but a 4.56 xFIP that is more the true number. If you want to call it something in between, you'll call it 4.25 as far as what the run number really looks like. 1.42 whip, way too many guys on base, despite not a terrible walk rate at 7.7%. What I'm really keyed in on, though, is the above our threshold, above our threshold, and above our threshold numbers for premium contact that he's been allowing. Should be well north of that 3.83% home run rate so far. So I fully believe in all the Angels' power that's showing. They're just a good power hitting team anyway. 5.26 implied total. That's the highest on the board. They're going to be popular, but I think there's ways to dance around that popularity with combinations if you consider some of these guys. Going this way, Kikuchi, one of the true roller coaster pitchers in Major League Baseball over the last 5 years. 3.13 ERA, but a 4.03 xFIP this year. A 24.4% strikeout rate. Quite good. One of the better marks on this slate. Comes on 11% swinging, but he's got a 10.3% walk rate that goes with that. He's got a 1.38 whip. He's constantly in trouble. There's always guys on base. Needs to strand runners most of the time. And that's challenging to do when you give up a 10.1% barrel, 42.4% hard hits, and 91.3 miles an hour of exit velo that make you look a whole hell of a lot like the guy I'm trying to target with bats on the other side of this game. You can absolutely draw Mariners bats against Yusei Kikuchi basically as aggressively as you draw bats against Logan Evans or anybody else on this slate. But he comes with a lot of upside for individual production on the right day. He's broken off some monster starts already this year, and he's more than capable of finding it against the team with a 23.8% strikeout rate for this projected lineup. A lot of strikeouts hiding in these lineups at the end of the night. Last time out, Kikuchi struck out 8, walked 3, 2 earned runs on 5 hits over 5 to the Phillies at Philly. Pretty good start. 3 earned runs in 5 2/3 to Arizona, 4 to Texas with 5 strikeouts against Arizona and 4 strikeouts against Texas. A 7 strikeout game, only 2 earned runs, 5 2/3 at the Braves. Not a bad start there. And then a monster, 2 unearned runs on 3 hits over 7 innings with 12 strikeouts against just 1 walk for him against Boston. Pretty solid start, especially the way that Boston hits lefties. That was just before that ridiculous tear that Boston went on against lefties. 7 innings in the start prior to that one, struck out 9 Astros, 2 earned runs on 6 hits. And the start before that, 5 2/3 in Baltimore, struck out 10 Orioles. Gave up 3 earned in that game, but only walked 2. That came on 7 hits, including a home run. And I'll give you one better. The start before that, he faced the Athletics, 7 1/3, 1 hit them, shutout ball, just struck out 5, but that's a very, very clean start. He's bottomed out. His worst start of the year, he's given up 4 earned runs. He's done that 1, 2, 3 times. Many of the starts come with probably more downside where you can accrue negative points at the pitcher position. FanDuel doesn't do that outside of runs allowed. He gives up a lot of hits, gives up a lot of walks, enough power. But you can definitely get there on a day like today with Yusei Kikuchi against this team. You can absolutely also get just knocked right out of the box in the first inning with all the power and the quality that the Mariners have. J.P. Crawford off the top of the Mariners, 32-28, remains incredibly affordable for a guy getting on base at a 378 clip, creating runs 25% better than average. He also hits the ball, enough. 279, 378, 379 with a 344 xWOB under the covers. Very solid option at shortstop on a short day like today. Julio, 4,800, 3,200 for him, 14 homers, 19 steals, a 156 ISO. You can quibble with those stats. The other counting stats that do accrue fantasy points, but we don't like talking about because they're not predictive. 65 runs, 51 ribbies is not terrible. Setting the table okay for Cal Raleigh for the bats that follow, 108 WRC plus, and we know in our hearts that there is more to give from Julio Rodriguez. Cal is an absolute beast. He's got 39 home runs before August. Ridiculous output. 11 stolen bases. Every day, he sets a new standard for the best catcher season of all time as of like a month ago. Ridiculous upside. Randy Arozarena at 45-34 across sites. 18 homers, 16 steals, a 135 WRC plus, 213 ISO, mashing baseballs, 12.3% barrel, 52% hard hits, looking like vintage Randy Arozarena. Love the option. Price, honestly, could be a little bit higher. 45 on DK. He's cheaper than Julio, and he's outperformed Julio in basically every facet of the game right now. So do with that information what you will. I like the option. 200 more on FanDuel. You can get them both pretty easily. Donovan Solano is not. There's a sample of what one of these positional formulas lookups looks like. Donovan Solano, not unplayable at 2,500, 2,200. He's not having a great year for him. 243, 292, 338. We usually rely on a little bit more hit tool at him. Last year in 309 chances, 286, 343, 417. Year before that, 282, 369, 391 across 450. You'll note there's not much power here, but he's a good line drive hitter. He's good at getting to first base via BABIP, a little bit of walk as well. Am I a liar about the walks? Yeah, I knew as I was saying it, that wasn't right. Well, 7.1, 8.9, mid-type walk rate. But low strikeout, high-quality bat on ball. Better hitter than he's been basically across this entire season. So with him as cheap as he is, with them basically lacking another option at first base, makes him very easy to get to in the heart of the lineup here. If he was hitting 8, somewhere in that territory, he'd be a lot less appealing. In the 5 spot, that's an interesting bat, especially with Randy Arozarena's propensity for getting on base after Cal Raleigh has cleared the bases with a big knock. Now I get back around here, and Solano's unlikely to hit me a 2-run home run in that situation, but he's got at least a decent chunk of probability at singling, maybe driving in Arozarena, who's got enough speed to do that. Maybe doubles, definitely drives him in. Mitch Garver's got some power, 9.5% barrels, 47.6% hard hits, 6 home runs in 183 chances, just a 136 ISO this year. Last year, 15 homers, a 169 ISO. The year before, 19 with a 230 in 344 plate appearances. That's the Mitch Garver we know and love. These numbers would suggest that we can get back toward that territory. not dissimilar from those numbers. Fewer barrels, but more hard hits. Strikes out a lot, but also draws some walks. Very, very playable on either site, whether you need catchers or not, but probably more appealing where you have to have them. Jorge Polanco, Dylan Moore, Ben Williamson down the bottom of the lineup. Moore can give you a little bit of something here and there. 9 homers, 10 steals, but an otherwise unappealing line across the board. 8.9% barrels for the cheap price. If you slot him in at second base, 4 positions on FanDuel, he's okay. Williamson, not so much. 262, 297, 320, and 80 WRC plus. Not all that much premium contact to speak of. And then Jorge Polanco, another total wild card. Strikeouts are basically cut in half this season from where they've been. He had a lot of production very early in the season, slipped a little bit. Overall, maintaining at 254, 312, 463, still a 200 plus ISO, 15 total home runs, still maintaining good upside for contact. So very playable at worst at 35-28. Skipping down to the Angels lineup, the one that I've been looking forward to talking about here. Thank you for my purchase. What did I purchase? Oh, all right. Just a subscription renewal. The old PlayStation Network subscription renewal came through. It's pretty good. You guys have that? The PlayStation gamers out there? I got a PS5 and I've got the PSN on it. And just with the game catalog that you get for streaming games, for download games, not bad. They give you a few a month that you can download free. It's games that came out a year ago or whatever. But especially if you're like me, where it takes you a while to beat a game like, Elden Ring, which I'm still working on. I think I was talking about this time last year. And other games, you can kind of space it out, especially with games that come out half developed these days from the big studios. It's a good way to go about it because you finally get, the patches and the fixes and everything in, and you can play a more complete version of the game. And they got a lot of old stuff in the back catalog and everything. Anyway, nobody's here to talk about the PlayStation Network. 526 implied total for the Angels is what we're here to talk about. Let me check what their ownership looks like. Probably silly. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a lot. Per these projections, Mike Trout slated to be in almost half of all FanDuel lineups. Seems aggressive. I do love this spot for the Angels, but with that much ownership in mind, and maybe it doesn't skew quite that high, but on a 4-gamer, it wouldn't stun me. Yeah, that kind of makes me less excited about it, but I'll probably still have plenty. Similar on DraftKings, basically the same number. As I said, there are ways you can get here. That's interesting. All right. I found our angle. I actually already talked about it. Travis d'Arnaud. I feel like they probably haven't fully caught up to updating his ownership projection yet. Since this lineup confirmed, maybe. But he does have one. Currently, and again, I don't fully buy it, especially if everybody else in this lineup or most of their key players are going as owned as they are. But right now, at the place I checked, they've got him sub 1% for Travis d'Arnaud. That's on the site where you have to play. Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, that's on the site where you have to play catcher. No. Why is this? Bear with me. On FanDuel, that's an asset. Let me tell you where it is on DraftKings. Okay, there we go. That's more like what I was expecting. All right. So where you have to play catchers, he is drawing a little bit of ownership, just barely into the double digits. That still is an intriguing angle into the Angel stack here. On FanDuel, that is your direct path into the Angels. If I can get a 1 to 5% owned Travis d'Arnaud with everybody sinking shares into Nolan Shanuel, you can even put them together if you want to. But that's really interesting, Jimmy. d'Arnaud has 6 home runs on the season, a 182 ISO, 14.1% barrels, 40.4% hard hits. Nothing surprising about those numbers. It's a little high for the small sample still. He was 10.5, 41.1 last year, 9.0, 42.8 the year before. Striking out a little bit more, walking a little bit less in the short sample so far. Last year, d'Arnaud hit 15 home runs in 336 opportunities, sharing time with Sean Murphy. Year before that, 11 in 292. Year before that, 18 in 426. 205 ISO that year, 172. 2 years ago, 202 last year. This is a legitimate catcher power bat. And people will not be using him enough on FanDuel where you can just play him like he's their first baseman. On DraftKings, 3,100 with the ownership that he's pulling relative to all the other ownership on this site, it is still the angle into the Angels here. You'll just be there with a few more of your friends. Bearing the lead, though, up at the top of the board, Mr. Zach Neto, your home run pick of the day at an 11.72 in the model. 15 on the season, 18 stolen bases, a 118 WRC plus, 198 ISO. Tons of premium contact from a high-quality shortstop, one of the better positional options on this slate. I didn't want to give it to Mike Trout because I figured he'd be popular, and boy is he. Neto is the second most popular Angels hitter. Quite a bit offset from where Trout is, but still in the extreme end of the board overall. Going to be really popular, probably going to land in a lot of my lineups anyway. Very capable player, and there's tons of ways to get different anyway. Trout is Trout, 5,318 homers, a 14.83 in the home run model. Shanuel, excellent at getting on base. 365 on base percentage, leading into Taylor Ward, Joel Moncada, Joe Adell, Travis d'Arnaud, who I want to get to as far as all those power bats goes. Love the on base, love the table setting option there. Shanuel is capable of delivering big games without hitting for power. 275, 365, 398. Solid 338 xWOBA that explains away that it's all real. A 115 WRC plus. Doesn't really strike out. Draws plenty of walks. It's an interesting bat for 4,000 for 3,200 over here. Probably better on DraftKings for one that's a slightly lower relative price. And you get the first base and catchers just on its own anyway. So you get them both just kind of more naturally than going first base and then using util there. Go 1, 2, 3 with like uber popular. And then that's 43.50 a man. What's Shanuel owned? Wow. Moncada's ownership is through the roof. I was going to say that maybe we would try and pull it around and take Shanuel out and go Moncada, but that actually triples the ownership for that spot. Moncada's projected for way more ownership in that site system. So we'll leave Shanuel at 41. And then where's Joey Adell? That's reasonable. For the upside that he provides, mid-teens kind of ownership on Adell. 42.60 a piece for that 5-man, including the 3 most popular guys, or 2 of the most popular guys, and 2 of the biggest upside guys. You'd also go, again, those 3, 31, and then Lamont Wade hiding there at 2,200. Just slashing 175, 278, 265 on the season, a 58 WRC plus. His 232 plate appearances this year, he might as well not have shown up for. He has done nothing at the plate. But this is a guy who last year, 263, 83, 81 with a 119 WRC plus over 401 plate appearances. That was a downturn. The year before, 256, 373, 417, a 122 WRC plus, 17 home runs. Solid 251 plate appearances as far as a little bit of power output the year before that. Pretty weak as far as the slash line goes. But that's 2 very, very good years over extended samples of getting on base, if nothing else. For 22, for 23, if you just look at them, even just look at them as a wraparound, get to first base ahead of the 2 big bats that are going to be so highly owned. Lamont Wade's in the single digits ownership-wise, and he's one of the cheapest bats on the entire slate that has actual quality. That's interesting. Luis Rengifo is a mix and match infielder, second base only on DraftKings. That's fine. Multi-position on FanDuel. 241, 282, 321 this year. 67 WRC plus. By comparison, just last year, 300, 347, 417. Created run 17% better than average by WRC plus. Hit 6 homers, stole 24 bases. That's a very different player. High quality last year, lost so far this year. In the heart of the lineup, I skipped over Taylor Ward. Absolute masher. 23 home runs in 434 chances, a 256 ISO. He's been great. Moncada, the reason he's getting so popular is 8 home runs in 146 chances. 254 ISO, a 352 xWOBA, a 124 WRC plus. One of the better stretches, at least for the power output that we've seen from John Moncada. The quality is going to come and go, and it'll probably go and be gone. But in this short stretch, still cheap, 41.29. That DraftKings price is fine. 29 on FanDuel. That works. 8.70 in the home run model. But given where he's owned, give me Joe Adell, give me Travis d'Arnaud, give me Nolan Schanuel. These two I'm taking regardless. They're going to be extremely, extremely popular. Taylor Ward bounces off some popularity. Where's he? Yeah, less popular than Moncada. More popular than Schanuel. And then some cheap mixers down lineup. It's a very usable Angels team. You can definitely get two different / interesting combinations. I mean, even that as a 3-man is not going to be the most popular way to roster these guys. It's $4,200 a piece for a stack that includes Neto and Trout. And you get a guy who used to be an on-base whiz, who the second, third, and fourth times through the lineup will be essentially hitting in front of them. That's what wraparound plays are for. I like him better from the bottom as a wraparound than I like Luis Rengifo, even though he's technically getting on base less than Rengifo this year. If you just took that as a 3-man and just look at it as a home runs or bust power hitting kind of a 3-man, under 4,000 or 39.33, so 4,000 a man for Taylor Ward, Joe Adell, and Travis d'Arnaud, I don't dislike that. And all three of those guys, compared to the other guys in the top of this lineup, the top half of this lineup, are lower owned in equally interesting spots. So I think you can get creative with stacking the Angels. They're going to be absurdly popular, but justifiably so. Believe in a lot of that power being very real against all this premium contact. Don't sleep on these guys either against the premium contact that Kikuchi can allow and all the walk bonuses that he's going to give these guys. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for Mariners run scoring. Angels bats, in spite of everything I just said, you say Kikuchi, Mariners bats, and then Logan Evans if you want to throw that dart. And that's it. There's not another game to click to there. Chunk the Deuce has been on the PlayStation since he was able to grab a controller. Love it. Yeah, I've been a PlayStation guy. I never had an Xbox. Prior to that, I was a Nintendo. I did have the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis at the same time, though. I was a bigamist as far as the Nintendo Sega relationship. Once we got to 16-bit, you kind of needed both those systems. They were so different. It's similar that way with Sony and Xbox, but you got so much crossover, and I feel like Sony's got the better among the exclusive games, at least the ones I like. So I've always been a PlayStation guy as well since the first PlayStation. I go back to the first Nintendo, the NES. Got that for Christmas the year it came out, 1985 or 86, I forget which. Never had the original Atari console. Neighbors across the street that way had the Atari. Neighbor up the block had an Intellivision. Anybody out there know Intellivision? Where's Larry? Larry probably does. Those were the predecessors. Intellivision never got very popular. That was like 4-bit graphics, if that's a thing. You had like a weird wheel kind of controller too. There was a baseball game I remember playing on it a lot. Chunk also asked, are we leaving thousands on the table tonight, right? Or is that just me? Absolutely can. Nothing wrong, any given slate, any given lineup, with leaving some salary on the table in baseball. A couple few $100. You typically want to start at least considering what you're doing once you hit like the 1,000 mark. But it's not inconceivable, and especially as the slate gets shorter and shorter with so many cheap options everywhere, that it's perfectly viable to go that way. You can build a perfectly cromulent lineup by doing that. Had to quote The Simpsons there. Fernando was liking Kikuchi over 6.5 strikeouts, but it's a ballsy play. That's a damn good line. Yeah, that would, if you were saying 5.5, I'd be saying, yeah, do it. 6.5, oof. Dicey. Lorenzo Robinson was called a Vortex. That was with the Intellivision. That was the controller. That's what the controller is called. Nice. Another person new in television out there. I love it. Makes me feel, well, also old, like Barry Bonds being 61 made me feel at the beginning of the show. But what are you going to do? Appreciate the drop in there. I never knew it was called the Vortex. Any other questions I didn't answer? Metro Boom calling out the Jose Altuve home run. I'll take that. Jose Altuve, love the upside. That would help the dynasty team as well. Long-term member of the dynasty team. Coleco, yep. Remember that. They ended up making games after that for Atari, right? And then there was the Commodore 64 was another one. We also had just like the old school Apple IIe games. Those were mostly like in school, like Oregon Trail and stuff like that with the green Apple IIe screens. Those were great though. I would love to play. It's probably online somewhere. I would love to play a quick game of Oregon Trail at some point. Die of dysentery while trying to ford a river. Surprisingly, I shouldn't say it's surprisingly never. They've probably made 30 different updated versions of that game. But the old one is the one I want. 6:07, we're looking at just under a 2-hour show. We're also looking at a 6:40 start time. I've got a couple of lineups left to drop up on the site. Todd saying 80s life. Yeah, we should quiet down about talking about being alive in the 80s. There seems to be some vengeance going on against people that were alive in the 80s right now. At least celebrities. Been a bad week for celebrities from the 80s. Yeah, Oregon Trail was the best. It was educational. We played the hell out of that game, too. I don't know why they would just let us play that game over and over again. You would think that would be like, all right, kids, we're wheeling in the computer for one day, and each of you gets a turn, but that's it. I remember playing that like over and over again in computer lab class, like on and on. Yes, we had computer lab on those Apple IIes. It was essentially amounted to, maybe that's why they let us play it so much. It was all you could essentially do was turn those on. There was nothing else you could do. It's not like we had the internet. There you go. Fernando's got it. Good stuff. So with that, guys, do the last quick look here at the old pitching board. I just pulled it up a second ago, but again, we've got the offset Sonny Gray. He's offset by price, little bit by projection, very much so by talent. Just a challenging matchup against the Pods. That's a low strikeout, medium quality Padres team up and down. But Sonny more than capable of punching his way through via the swinging strikes, the CSW that he's got. Very, very capable top end. Coming off the worst start of his, of at least his season, if not his recent career. So maybe wants to kick them in the ass a little bit. Love the option, but more expensive than everybody by quite a bit on your DraftKings slate. Kikuchi, Olsen, both playable. Both probably a little bit offset from talent from everybody else below them here. I would say that's a tier. This is a tier. And then all these guys are essentially a tier. Lowry, you could maybe argue, belongs in this one, just given the strikeouts that he's put up. Like I said, when we talked that through, though, I'm not really a believer in that strikeout because it's not actually based on anything. There's nothing he's really seemingly doing different. Not really finding swinging strikes at any better rate. Not really throwing more strikes at any better rate. Just somehow coming away with a few additional strikeouts in that medium sample. But he's very playable. Olsen just challenged by that low strikeout, high quality Toronto lineup, but I like him a lot. I think he's very playable here at 86. 81 works just fine on DraftKings. And then everybody in this group is very challenged by negative personal attributes, short starts, injury history, not being all that talented, et cetera, et cetera. Variety of prices, variety of ownership, variety of projections. Good luck. Colin Sutherland, I used to see 64 in all my usernames as an homage, even though I'm too young to have used one. Nice. I like that. So 6:10, let me punch out of here, you guys. You absolutely rock out there. One more time, not to harangue anybody, but if you're new here, check out the website, rotoscouts.com. You can gain access to all of these projections, everything behind the paywall, everything that ever hits that website is yours for under $1 a day. Whether it's baseball, football, basketball, hockey, anything else we've put our thumbs on. Right now, baseball only, but we just added a new feature this week where we're getting a snapshot of this entire screen. You're not getting the file. You're not getting my Excel file here, my whole model or anything. But you're getting all of this information for every one of the games. Just like on the show, I go game by game. Might cost me some viewers on the show. Might cost me some subscriptions on YouTube. But people wanted it. it was easy enough for me to throw it up on the website. New feature as of this week included for the same $1 a day. You get access to the projections, individual home run model number for everybody, pitching projections, top stacks ranking that I put together personally every day and actually put some time into making sure everybody's about where they ought to be. Power index that basically gives you the aggregate power numbers. It's these numbers right here. Top 6 and the full lineup power index number for the entire team. So you can kind of gauge home run probability for each team. And then that game by game snapshot. Once we get to NFL, I do multiple pieces through the week for NFL. I'm going to try, I said this going into last year, I'm going to try and parse it out a little bit better throughout the week. We will see. A lot of late Friday nights, Thursday nights, long shows last year. Well, we'll see what we do. But a lot of content hits that website, especially when all 4 sports are going together. Makes my life chaotic, but there's a lot of value for under $1 a day, I think. I know. What am I doubting myself? I know there's a lot of value up there. The point is, we're trying to cater to people like you, people that are making a lineup, people that are making 20 lineups, 5 lineups, 15 lineups, 150 lineups. You can absolutely use every single thing I provide to build out a full portfolio of 150 lineups, drop them into Sims, et cetera, et cetera. But the vast majority of the industry builds a few lineups. A lot of people do it by hand still. A lot of people don't want to pay multiple hundreds of dollars per sport, plus sim fees, plus optimization fees. It adds up really, really quickly, and it makes it impossible to stay ahead of the curve and stay ahead of the burn rate when you're paying those kind of prices for projections. DFS for the people, baby. rotoscouts.com. Check it out. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Free Discord linked in the chat or in the description for this video below. And with that in mind, you guys, you absolutely rock. Really appreciate every last one of you. Come on back tomorrow for more of this. Good luck out there tonight. Share the somebody go win something. Share the results when you do at rotoscouts.com or at rotoscouts on Twitter or in that Discord. And we will see you tomorrow. Later.